was slow, Doma changing the game. One bridge, one standard, now the systems move the same. Registrar stay central, keep the trust and control. DNS and compliance, still they play the key role. Traded on chain, let new markets arise. Domain value unlocked. Welcome to Domain Fi.
Welcome to Doma OnAir. This is episode 2. We survived episode 1 barely, but really looking forward to getting into things today. We've got a special guest joining us. This is episode 2 of Doma OnAir, from parked to paid, making domains liquid, featuring Richard Lau. First off, Richard, GM, owner of rides.com, short.com, and a domainer OG. Welcome. Excited to have you join us today.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. Yeah. It's
Awesome.
Looking forward to some lively conversations.
Likewise. We have back with us Michael and Fred as well. Before we get started on all things Doma and Domain Fi today, I'm curious, kind of put you both on the spot here a little bit, and it's perfectly fine if you didn't see, but I just came out of the congressional hearing, the tokenization hearing. I'm just curious if either of you, if you had a chance to listen in, and if not, if you just had any high-level thoughts regarding everything happening at the administration level, regulatory level, and how that might impact Doma and Domain Fi. Any thoughts? Did you happen to see the hearing today? We'll go Fred first and then Michael.
I did not, but Michael, I think you're in New York. Were you front and center for that?
I did not hear the hearing. There is Digital Asset Summit going on this weekend in New York. I would say most of the conversations are focused on institutions onboarding. So I know we've had a lot of progress, and despite all the market volatility, I think there's a lot of excitement for real adoption. And I think, the word Web3 is being used less and less, and crypto and blockchain more and more around just, new tech bringing on compliance solutions for folks. So, I'm confident this industry, time and time again through the cycles, will continue to find ways to innovate. Stable coins is a good starting ground, but there's so much more. And, that's why we're talking domains. It's the world's best digital asset.
Absolutely. I will say that domains have never been considered a security, not in any time that I recall. And I've been in the domain industry for a long time. Richard, I'm sure you've never heard of a domain name being a security. Have you?
Yeah, I mean, there's so, it's like you say, these are real world assets, right? We're just entering a new realm of this. I think the congressional hearing today. I didn't see it, but I was reading about it. They're trying to. It's Wall Street meets blockchain, right? And do the security laws and security systems in place, the regulatory actions in place. Can they handle the tokenization, right? And regulatory policy. These are important things. It's what keeps society running.
Absolutely. And I agree. The worlds are merging. Like we say on-chain today, I think it'll just be finance, and salute to Doma and D3 for getting ahead of this and bringing these domains on-chain. But as I said last week, I think if you're registering a domain today, I don't know why you wouldn't bring it on-chain. It just unlocks more. And speaking of domains, I did get a little teaser for later in the show. Hot off the press, big news this week. Unstoppable Domains basically said Web3 domains are dead. Their CEO came out and called blockchain naming part of the crypto craze, never crossed the chasm. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But I saw this and I was like, well, this would be a good topic for my morning show. Like, actually, it's a great topic for Doma OnAir. Excited to get all of your opinions on that and just Web3 naming in general. And then also we'll talk a little more this afternoon about the Dominion conference. I saw a couple big new keynote speakers lined up. And as always, we're going to talk about how we can turn some of these domains into real money with someone who's been doing it longer than most of us have been online. We'll get into rides.com and which is about to hit Doma, I believe. So with that, let's jump right into things here. We've got a lot to talk about. I would, if it's okay with you, gentlemen, I kind of like to start with Richard's story. And do you mind sharing a little bit of your background, Richard? Like when did you realize domains wasn't a side hustle, but you mentioned these are real world assets and quite a big segment at that. But when was the kind of your light bulb moment, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, this is a 4-hour podcast, right? So,
Got it.
no, I'll make it as quickly as possible. I'm old. I was in the beeper business. I can sing Sir Mix-a-Lot's beepers song word for word. And I was helping a friend who was doing an internet dial-up startup, and we were just talking with people that worked in that company, and a friend and I were like, "Hey, let's build a website." And we sat down one day, and first step was to register a domain name. So we registered 50 domain names because at the time you didn't have to pay for them until the invoice arrived. Anyway, we lost interest like the next day. And so, but then we got an email from Microsoft, I don't know, 2 weeks later, offering us $10,000 for one of the domain names that we hadn't even paid for. And so I'm like, okay, these are real world assets, right? We literally went through the garbage, the recycling bin, and found the invoice that had arrived and was literally unopened, tossed into the recycling, and paid for the renewal. Called Microsoft, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, $10,000 subject to a trademark search."
No haggling. No haggling.
Trademark owner. I'm making it
start
short.
with 2 more zeros.
Time constraints here. But that was like a 2-week process down. We got up to $10,000. Actually, $9,999 because he had a $10,000 PO limit. But there was a trademark owner in Toronto. But this is back in the day. There was, like I said, 2 minutes ago, policy and regulation helps society go around. There was nothing. It was the wild freaking West.
Wait, what year was that?
This is 90. I want to say 97.
Oh man.
Well,
yeah,
I was 2 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
I was
exactly.
College man. You had the foresight.
So no. This is luck. This is pure, absolute stinking luck. And then I went to the trademark owner was in Toronto, so I called her up and said, "Look, I registered a domain name. You're the trademark owner. Do you want to buy it off me?" And so she paid $3,000 for it. It was carsource.com. Microsoft got some other domain. And that was my start. That was like, oh wow. But it still didn't click. I'm not that bright. What I did is, instead of going out and registering 1,000 domain names, which is what I should have done, I built systems that was basically selling shovels, right? It's like, oh, sell shovels during the gold rush instead of getting the gold. But honestly, I should have gotten the gold.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pretty awesome first big hit. Microsoft comes calling. Is there a painful miss in there? Is there one that coulda, woulda, shoulda when it comes to domains?
Oh, I've got so many financial failures. It would just, but the biggest one that I regret selling is weed.com.
Oof.
I sold it. I bought it for 100, sold it for, I think, 100. And so I basically lost money on the commission, right? Because I had to pay a seller's commission to the auction it sold in. That was 2008. But you know what? I should have just, I buy for the long term. I should have just held on to it and been like, let's see what happens. Sold grass.com, but weed.com is the most painful one. Because,
what do you think that goes for today? What is that praise?
It's easily $12 to $20 million. Yeah.
So not quite AI.com, but in the ballpark.
It's in the ballpark. Yeah, it's up there. It's up there. And it probably, I think the weed market has slowed down a bit. It has, people aren't as big potheads as everyone made us out to be. And so I think it would probably be on the lower side of that range, but it was could have definitely sold for $20 million when the laws were first being relaxed.
Wow.
Every month I find out that Richard owns another keyword.com that I don't know about.
Yeah.
Last year it was hockey.com. I know, it's like every year. I saw recently that agentically.com got auctioned for less than $10,000.
Okay.
I don't know, Richard, would you have picked that up?
I've got so many that I don't really need any more. And I'm happy to let other people make money, right? I don't need to have everything. There's people out there, full of piss and vinegar and putting in the hours, and I'm happy to let them have it. I've got enough in my stable that that I'll pick up the occasional one, but those again, those are ones that I have an idea for. It's like real estate. I only want to buy a place that I could see myself living in if I needed to, right? So I only want to buy domains now that I could see myself using if I wanted and had the time, or so that's I don't always have to go for all of the big flips. I'm happy to let somebody else take care of that.
That's like we all have those stories, don't we? I remember 3 years ago, I thought I could use agent.ai and agents.ai. I was like, a broker came along and I was like, oh, here you go.
Oof.
And these days, I'm sure that those names are like anywhere from $2 to $10 million each, right? Yeah, man. We all have those stories.
Well, maybe we can change Richard's mind by the time this episode's over, because I'm by no means have anywhere close to not even one of those domains, let alone multiples, but similar thought process where I'd have a great idea or an idea, register a domain, and then not do anything with it. A year goes by, I'm like, I'm not doing anything with this, and just let it go, because I wasn't doing anything with it. And then now I got into the mindset, I'm not going to buy a domain unless I'm actually going to build a business or do something around it. I think we talk about, this, even the title of this episode, from park to paid. And I think Doma is helping unlock some of those assets to where we don't necessarily have to build ourselves. They can be a productive asset, a productive domain, even if we're not necessarily building a business around it. I guess my question before we dive into more things, DomainFi and Doma, is, Richard, has there been, you shared a big hit, you talked about some misses. Is there any deals or anything along the way that's changed how you think about risk, specifically in the domain space?
About risk, or I've been, I'm in this business, and I am sometimes still shocked and amazed at how much someone is willing to pay for a domain. I'm from, besides besides rise.com, I'm also act as a buyer's agent at, I own short.com. Hey, Michael. I own short.com. It's a place where you can go search 27 million domain names that are all priced, and you can buy it instantly, instant checkout. I don't own all of them. I act as a buyer's agent for a lot of startups that are powered by VCs. And, sometimes when I'm sitting across the table from them or on Zoom, their budget for a domain name is, 6-7 figures. And I'm just blown away, because, I'm an old timer where you're like, oh, let's see if we can hand register. Oh, now, a lot of startups will, I'll shell out 2,000, 5,000. They're coming to the table now, and they're like, no, I know I'm going to need to spend at least $100,000 here, $50,000, $100,000. And, I've closed 7-figure deals for startups that are pre-revenue. And we can get into this later, but there's creative ways to finance that.
You're also talking, Richard, about real domains like .com, not like Web3 or alt roots. OG startup.com is still
.com,
most popular.
.ai, .ai's have caught, .io used to be, but .ai is very popular right now in the startup world. But they can't be, they have to work in the real world, right?
Richard, I'm curious, when you're especially talking to these VCs, is it always just an outright buy? Is there ever any sort of, I don't know, rev share or creative financing that goes into these domains? Is it?
No. I mean, you have to tailor your approach to who's sitting across the table, right? So often you come in and, I actually think of myself as the tailor, right? Like somebody comes in, they want a suit, and you're like, okay, how are we going to make this fit? because you're looking at somebody that has a $5,000 budget, but they want a $50,000 domain. And you're like, okay, well, look, we can figure this out. It's not just a no right out of the gate. Maybe we take your 5,000 and we do an option to purchase, right? And we give that money to the owner, and we're like, hey, can we have a 12-month option to purchase? Here's $5,000. If we don't exercise and you want 50,000, if we don't exercise in 12 months at 50,000, you keep the 5,000, right?
And I bet some of those companies actually bake in the domain name as part of their startup pitch to raise money themselves.
They sure do. They sure do, because
the difference between go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the goodwill factor and the credibility factor. I had resume.com for a while, right? And I send somebody a message on LinkedIn saying, hey, it's Richard from resume.com. I'm going to be in LA on Monday. Do you want to grab coffee? And I send that to ZipRecruiter. They replied in 15 minutes saying, yeah, come on in. If I was coming from, resumemountainstreams.com, right? Or resumejoy.com, they'd be like, Canadian, go jump in the lake, right? Report spam, right? So no, the quality of a domain name, especially for a startup, is more than worth it. And there's creative ways to tailor it so that we can get you into that car today, right? But yeah, equity doesn't happen as much. But it is, I have seen deals with that. More it's around the payment plans, whether it's an option to purchase or payment over time, or I even use domain capital to do some financing. There's lots of different ways. Vendor financing. Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to get people into domain names.
Richard, I know you mentioned startups, but also VCs want those really premium .coms. Talk a little bit what you're seeing about why some of these investors also want.
Oh, yeah. And by the way,
names.
Michael is a former VC, managed a $600 million fund.
It was a bit of a rhetorical question, but I want to hear from Richard because he says he's been a broker for many of these firms. So
narrative, isn't that the big thing these days? Narrative spinning.
Sorry, Michael. What was your exact question on that?
Can you share a little bit more about why you think some of even investors on the flip side are willing to pay such high budgets for these, let alone startups?
Yeah, no, I mean, the VCs are the ones sometimes educating the startups to say, you guys have a shitty domain. We don't want to finance you. We don't want to put, $20 million into you if you're operating on an unknown, right? They're like, look, take that money, call Richard, you're not going to spend all $2 million or $20 million, but use some of that money to secure a domain. Even if it's, we can do most of the payments over time are like 3 to 5 years when you're in that 7-figure range. And, for a few $100,000, you get to, pull up in a Ferrari, right? And so when you're Hill.com, as an example, right? Hill.com, holy shit, like how good is that domain, right? If someone pulls up and they're like, hey, yeah, we're Hill Financial Services.ai, and we're pitching blah, 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 you've already lost me, right? But if you're like, hey, I'm Hill.com, you're like, what? Okay, clear my morning, I need to talk to you, right? The reaction and for the amount of money that you've spent, which is, you're not buying it outright. You're just putting the money down up front, right? And you're making payments over time. So you can slide yourself into a Ferrari and get that attention. And you need that attention when you're pitching to whether it's to your customers or your potential customers or to your second round. You need that attention. So a Hill.com example to me is an amazing one. But Richard, that's what we're looking at.
You own logo.com, right? And curious, Michael, if you saw a pitch deck from logo.com versus logomountainstreams.com, what would you think?
I mean, I think exactly what Richard thinks. So, I mean, the amount of spam that you and I, Fred, receive in our email inbox, right? The first thing I'm looking at is actually the domain, right? Well, first it's the name of the sender, and then it's what company are they from, and I'm looking at the email address associated with the domain. So Rich is completely right.
I'm sure there's some back and forth on especially these 6-7 figure domains, but is there at least public facing tools or a way to pray? Like, how do you know how much these domains are worth? Is it, I mean, what the seller's willing to pay, certainly, but like, where do you
real estate
with some of these rare domains?
I mean, yeah, I mean, a lot of it, sometimes it's vibes and you're dealing with art. Other times it's, it's the people call me because there's a 30% chance that I know the owner, right? If you're wanting a oneword.com, there's a 30% chance that I've got that owner on my WhatsApp or on my LinkedIn, and I can get an answer right away. But beyond that, I also know what motivates that seller, right? So I can tell you, hey, I recently had a negotiation where my buyer was willing to pay, 2.8 million. And he was like, yeah, I'll why don't we offer 2.4 right now? I'm like, no. Let me rewrite an email that you've sent me, and I can guarantee you he will accept it at 2 million because I know what his motivations are. And so I made 10 minutes, make a few tweaks. He immediately the seller immediately accepted it at 2 million. I saved my buyer $400,000 on a 10-minute edit of his email, right?
You probably saved him 4 years too.
Yeah,
between hunting and looking for the perfect name.
Yeah, and so that's part of the art of looking at these domains. But yeah, there are tools out there. There's GoDaddy Domain Appraisal, which I don't know if you look at the discussion on that. There's definitely problems in that they're usually underpricing. They're overpricing the 4-figure domains, and they're underpricing anything above 25 grand. So and there's Estabot, but really you should talk to a broker, whether it's myself or Media Options. There's a lot. Saw.com, Evergreen. I mean, there's so many people I can give shout outs to, but talk to a broker if you're serious. If it's a small budget, right? If you're looking at like $2,000 to $5,000, that's the majority of the domains they're selling for. 2word.coms, go for that. Half the time you should just buy it. If you land on, go to Short, look up a domain, you're going to see domains priced at like $50 to $5,000. That's the majority. Okay. But chances are, if you contact that owner and say, hey, I really want this 5letter.com that you priced at $4,000 8 years ago, the guy's going to be like, oh, I forgot I own that. Damn. He does some Googling, checks out Google Trends. He's like, that's not 4,000. I'm going to reprice that to 24,000. Right. So if you see a domain and you're like, I think I could probably get it, you should just buy it, because chances are that it was priced by someone like me 8 years ago and just lazy as all get out, and we haven't repriced it. Right. So, yeah.
I'm at short.com, Richard. I see pennystocks.ai for just under $150,000. And that's a pretty good name, right?
Yeah.
You think about what can be done these days with AI tools, OpenClaw, agentic workflows.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of stock, talk about stock investing where AI, you put in $20 a month and just let AI run it and see what happens, right? And then after 4 years, compare it against your financial advisor to see what's done better, right? I think that's just a fun thing to do, and that would be fun to do on penny stock. So, yeah, 150,000 sounds like a lot, but is it? What can you buy for 150,000 in the real world? I can't buy a parking spot in Vancouver for under $500,000, right? If you're in New York and you're wandering around, I'm like, I want to get a jasmine tea today. It's like, that's going to be $11, sir, right? Come on, 150 grand for a good domain name that's going to match what your company and what your vision is. It's sometimes people just kill me on like how penny pinching they are when it comes to the brand and name their business.
You got all the way down to pennystocklist.com for $1,000 and
There you go.
truepennystocks.com for $1,700.
Yeah.
How's that discovery been for you, by the way? Like, can you imagine if you had like a Zillow or Redfin these days, and when it comes to like more eyeballs on this kind of sitting inventory, have you thought about what that could look like if you had more eyeballs on it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want, right? Is you want to get the audience in, and get more. We're in a what do you call it? An attention economy, right? So, the more eyeballs, the more value, right?
I'm not just saying this because we got Fred and Michael on the show here, but it hit me immersing myself in Doma and learning more about DomainFi, and just the understand they are a real world asset. In the comparison that, like, you use New York, like if this is real estate, location, and a short.com is a lot more valuable than this is a short domain .abc.
Absolutely.
It's like the difference between a really nice subdivision, a really nice neighborhood, and one that's, right next door, there's a bunch of double wides right across the street from it.
Yeah.
Thinking about them as real estate, albeit digital in nature, it's got me, like, previously we said, $150,000 domain, no way, I'll find a different name for the business. But the reality is it is very valuable, and there's one of them. I guess one more question on the whole domain and how to value these domains. Whether you're talking with a brand new startup or it's an experienced VC firm, how much weight goes into the actual top level, like .com versus, okay, someone else has this .xyz? Is that, we're not going to touch it? There could be confusion there. How much does it go into play if someone else, if there's another existing, whether it's a competitor or a completely different industry, but they have same name, different domain?
Yeah. So I always like to try and see if there's a pathway to the .com, right? So let's say the .com is priced at $2 million, and you're like, I that's too much for me. They're like, it's too much for you right now, but at least it's not owned and in use by someone like Verizon, right? If it's owned by Verizon, the chances of you being able to get them to release the domain for even $5 million is slim to none. So if the domain is sitting as available and for sale for $2 million, that's fantastic news. Let's start you out on a .xyz. I know Daniel Nagari. He's the founder of XYZ. It's a great domain, a great extension. And you can start out. A lot of domains sell for a lot more than you would think on .xyz. There's brokers and domain investors that have made their entire living on registering .xyz and then selling that to startups for $5, 10, 15, 20, 35, 40, $50,000 for a .xyz single word domain. But what you can do with that, right? Let's say you come up with your company, JasmineT.xyz, right? And then you're like, okay, well, I don't want to spend the $12,000 on JasmineT.com, or whatever, 200,000. I don't even know what it is. But you can put in you can hand register JasmineT.xyz, or you can buy it for $1,000. Well, start on that. But you can have as your pathway to the .com. But let's say Jasmine T is owned by Tetley or Twinnings. You're like, they're never going to give it up.
Yep.
So don't start with JasmineT.xyz.
Makes sense. Start
with JasmineThouse.xyz, and then just make sure you've got that pathway. And we, you can't afford it now, but you're going to start with one location. You're like, what? When we hit 50 locations, then we'll buy the .com. It's like, okay, well, hopefully the owner hasn't increased the price by then. And they probably won't, because they're lazy like me. But you might also just be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to start with JasmineThouse.xyz. I'm going to call Richard. He's going to get me an option to purchase JasmineThouse.com for $10,000, and that's going to be exercisable for 2 years. And that's when we should hit 50 locations. Then you can go to your investor and say, hey, Michael, this is the plan. This is what we're starting on. This is where we're going. This is how we're going to get that. And he's going to be like, oh, You don't have the .com yet, but I see your pathway to it. You know what? That's such a great idea. I'm just going to increase my funding by an extra X dollars so that you can go get the .com right now. And yeah, you know, coming back to the investors, they don't want to write a check. They don't want to, like, talking about real world assets, right? They don't want you to go build a castle, you know, 4 hours outside of Paris, right? Where no one's going to be. Yeah, it's beautiful, right? It's absolutely beautiful. You're in the beautiful countryside. No, they want you to build in the city, right? They want you to take that money and put it in the city. So, like, you know, yeah, you've got, you know, call it like I don't know, Esther's Easter eggs dot, you know, live, not to shit on live, but and you know, no one's gonna come across it, right? But if you're like, you know, Esther's
it's gonna hit your
eggs,
spam filter for sure.
yeah. You know,
Yeah.
you got like Esther'sEggs.com. You know, then the investor's gonna be like, okay, you know what you're doing, right? So it's super important. And a lot of the time, half the time, is the investors are educating the startup on the importance of why you need a good domain.
Great.
Or you could be like me, spot buy. Like I said, I see a domain, I know what I'm going to build. I'll buy that com or AI for anywhere from 50 to 200,000 bucks at times, right? But again, I think you speak to the spectrum of buyers, right? It all depends on the person. It could be a person with two 23-year-old kids, no offense to young folks, but basically just starting off trying to go to YC and give away 8% of your company to Paul Graham, right? Which is great. And go the kind of walk before you crawl, before you walk before you run. Or you can just be like, you know what, I'm midway sprinting. I have this conviction, I have a budget, my investors behind me, and fuck it. I'm gonna drop 75,000 bucks tomorrow for this AI name. And I'm gonna bring that into my conversation with my VC and show Michael that I got some cojones.
Yeah,
well, we
confidence
remember
spells.
We started with .inc and then slowly expanded. We got our AI. We own our .com today. So I think Richard, what you explained is a clear linear path. But I remember when Fred told me, "Hey, we had the chance to get this .com," I was like, "I don't know if we need to." We kind of rallied the 0 to 1 of the company around the .inc, but in retrospect, totally makes sense to have the .com. I think it gives a lot of authenticity to what we're doing. And I think even in the age of AI with agents, I still think there is an element of human readable names, right? Super valuable, especially when you have all these agentic workflows. Like, people want to know they're talking to a human on the other side.
Yeah, you know, I mean, even if you look at whether it's an LLM or the organic search, you know, people are like, oh, you know, Google is agnostic. They don't care whether it's, you know, Fred.com or Fred.xyz. It's like, that's true to a certain extent, but the LLMs are mirroring human behavior, and human behavior is, if I have a list of 20 results, I'm going to click on Fred.com, not Fred.xyz, if they're side by side, right? If Fred.xyz is there, and then it's, you know, fredsdoghouse.com, I'm like, okay, well, I'll probably click on Fred.xyz. But if it's Fred.com versus Fred.xyz, the humans are going to click on the .com, because, you know, you're always, even if you don't think about it, your brain is thinking about it, right? It's like Blink, that book by
you won't see a startup pitch coming from me on a .tk domain name, right?
I would add, not only the humans, I think as AI agents proliferate the internet more and more, they've been trained by humans. Like, I think they're too, like, much more like the legitimate, not legitimate's not the right word, but the .coms before they're going to click a .live. Like, that's what they've been trained on, is how we think. And so I think that will carry through into this agentic world we're heading into.
Exactly.
Quick reset. I see some questions in the chat. We're not ignoring you there. We will do our best to get through all questions. We're got this scheduled for an hour, but we're running a little bit long. So we may not get to all the questions. However, I do see there's an AMA in the Discord. We'll see if we can grab a Discord link for those of you that aren't in there. But appreciate everyone in the chat. Continue to bring your questions, and we'll get them answered today if we can. If not, we'll see if we can get a follow up in the Discord. But yeah, shout out to everyone in the chat today. Quick, like, zooming back out a little bit and kind of like a state of the industry, if you will. I earlier I alluded to or mentioned Matt Gold, the CEO of Unstoppable, said Web3 domains are basically dead. I'd like just a little discussion kind of around the horn on that one. Do you agree? Do you disagree? To quote the CEO, he says, Web3 domains are part of the crypto craze, didn't cross the chasm, and Unstoppable Domains is pivoting hard into traditional DNS. 90% of their business is now regular domains. He's basically saying blockchain naming failed. Thoughts?
Well, first of all, I would say in D3, our concept is domains are just domains. I mean, domains work on the domain name system, the DNS. So for us from day zero, there was never a segregation, right? I think you can consider the alt roots a different system altogether.
Mm-hmm.
What we're building with D3 has always been rooted in DNS infrastructure because it's what works, right? Every browser, every device. So not to pat ourselves on the back, but we've always been a fan of this, and I think this is why we can work, and we're very privileged to work with folks like Richard and other folks. So that's the political response. Maybe Fred, you can give a more polarizing view.
Look, yeah, I mean, we know that Unstoppable, and I've met Matt, and I feel like I have a good relationship with Matt and Gould and stuff. We've met at these conferences and stuff. Look, they're an ICANN accredited registrar, and they're a growing business. And there are a lot of registrars out there. I fully support, obviously, what registrars are going to do. And I'll say what I said to him, I think, a couple months ago. There's a lot of ways for people to make money in the ICANN lane, right? And we know a lot of successful registrars, such as Namecheap as well. I will kind of double down on kind of what I said before and kind of the history of our company. We're kind of here to kind of promote interoperability. There has been another Web3 naming project called ENS, and great Web3 naming project. And they put a lot of time and effort into doing interoperability for the Web2 side, making it seamless between Web2 and Web3 worlds. We think that theme is only going to grow going forward, but I do think when I look at a domain name, it's either Web3 wallet or a identifier, or it's a domain. Like me and Richard, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Richard, but when you and I talk about brides.com or D3.com, we're talking about the OG original ICANN accredited asset that actually works on all browsers, all devices in the world, and powers pretty much 6 billion people, right? So I think over the past few years, there's been a little bit of confusion over there, but I think that now, at least one thing I'm thankful for is just things are becoming much more clear what the difference is between Web3 and real domains.
Yeah, I think Unstoppable proved you making up new extensions on the blockchain, it just doesn't work, right? People want real .coms. That's I'm biased. I'm going to say that. What D3 is doing is the opposite. We're taking domains that already work, that already have value, and then making them tradable and liquid on chain. I mean, that's fundamentally a different bet. So.
Absolutely. I'm not going to knock D3, but I agree. It's becoming the same world. And I think, not to tell domain.
The world was always here, not to interrupt you. I just wanted to reemphasize the world that Richard mentioned, since he started registering these things for free, then paid, was started 40 years ago, right? And yeah, we're that old, right? So I don't mean to interrupt you, Cap, but I feel like it's more people coming back around to, this is the true religion. Okay, we all kind of went astray for a little bit, but we all kind of came back to the original pieces.
You don't have to apologize about interrupting me, but reminding me that 1997 was like 30 years ago. That do an apology. Like that's making me feel old. I wasn't, I unfortunately wasn't buying domains yet, but I was building computers and ready. I would be, different spot had I had the foresight that Richard did back then. But yeah, that made me sweat a little bit. 30 years ago, in my brain, like, oh, it was like 1960. Nope, that was 1997. Right. But yeah, this is. This world, like you said, it's always been here. And as we kind of talked about last week on episode 1, Doma isn't taking away from the traditional domain world. It's additive. It's adding to. It's unlocking more access, more utility. It's making these sometimes passive investments that are parked to they're now liquid assets. You're able to do a lot more with them. They become much more productive. I do, if it's okay, I would like to share some high level industry numbers, a few big domain sales this past week. And we'll talk maybe a little bit more about those Web3 naming conventions. Continents.ai, a fresh graduation over on Doma. Michael, maybe you can tell us a little about the Relay integration I saw this past week, and then we talked briefly about software AI last week, but wanted to maybe double tap on that one. Let me think. I have a screen grab here. I will try to pull up one of the biggest domain I saw sell this past week was terrafab.ai. And do we know, like, was that registered by Elon's new company? Is it someone trying to front run that domain? I guess, speaking of VCs and big domains and big money, I saw the news about Elon unveiling this facility that's making chips, but it's not really a chip company. And do we know, or how do you, like, do you happen to know, or would that require more research to see if Terrafab AI, which sold for $174,000, was that the Terrafab company that Elon started, or was that someone else front running and maybe squatting on the domain?
Richard, have you heard?
I haven't.
I
haven't. I don't know what this was about.
I heard of the purchase, and let's just say I don't know exactly if it was Elon, but it wouldn't surprise me. I know there's another guy who owns. I know another guy who owns a lot of .ai names, and he's confirmed before that he sold 1 or 2 names to Elon. And it was like, well, how did he sell it? Oh, well, he always comes in through a shell company, and we always know what he sounds like. And there's a very standard letter. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that, and those are the implicit versus explicit confirmations. But okay, there you go. Is that terrafab.ai?
Yeah, I mean, it's linking to XAI, to Tesla, to SpaceX. So I would say it must have either been them, or it's someone getting really creative and they're trying to fish some people here. But no, it looks like it was them. So
I saw an X post that, like, it was like 100x or something return to the guy who actually sat on that and been renewing it for the past number
and that's
of years.
Something like, who's thinking terrafab.ai? Like, it's and I guess if you're a SpaceX, if you're an Elon of the world, like, you're going to go get whatever domain you want, and 174,000. Wow,
like, not to preach too much, but I must say history repeats itself. I believe, and this is going to get a little sentimental for me too, Richard, but I was sitting across the street in my other office 20 years ago. Yeah. And basically I was anonymizing a bunch of keyword data, right? I'm not, because we saw a lot of search traffic through our first domain company. And I would send partners like Richard a bunch of keywords, and it was always like, who the heck types this stuff in search engines back then? Yeah. Right? Well, the stat was 15% of all internet searches back then, 15, was actually coming through people just typing in, like bluecap.com and just adding a .com. So we never know. It's like predicting search, both humans and agents. You never know, right?
Yeah, I'm looking on ldns.com right now, which is a cool tool. But I looked up terrafab.ai. To me, it looks like it was registered in November of 2025 over at Spaceship, which is, Richard Kirkendall over at Namecheap. That's his he's got 2 registrars, Namecheap and Spaceship. He's the registrar, right? He's got millions of customers. So one of his customers registered the domain, looks to me like November 16th, 2025. So I'm like, when registered the trademark get filed for that? Well, if you look at, I'm just, ChatGPT says Terrafab trademark was registered in August 2025, probably filed before that in June. Wow. So someone, this is bad advice to, I'm just going to throw that trademark lawyer under the bus. Whoever filed that trademark,
yeah, what are you doing?
Should have said, hey, do you have your .com, your .ai? Like, what are you doing on your domain name? Because this is going to be a public record. And that's a long time. June or August is registered in August. And then, the trademark was registered in August. The domain name, the .ai domain, wasn't registered until November. So September, October, November, that's 3 months. Get off your ass. and register your defensive registrations for the registration fee. Right here,
or just have enough money to God and just pay a stupid price.
No, the trademark. People are like, I've got the trademark. I'll be able to get the domain. No, you won't. You're gonna have to write a check for $174,000. Like it's inane. It's just bad advice. Whoever is advising the person, it's not the business owner's job to know this. It's their advisors and the experts around them. So my anger here is, and this is is at the trademark lawyer, right? Giving bad advice. Like the first thing out before he files it is like, what's your domain name strategy, dude? Right? Go spend $2,000 registering the .xyz, the .com, the .ai, the .io. Get everything for a couple $1,000s, right? If you can get the .com, maybe you don't have to worry about anything else. But if you're an AI company, definitely get the AI. It was sitting unregistered. Come on.
Wow. And kudos to whoever saw. I'm assuming they saw the trademark or maybe just got lucky. But yeah, I mean,
they took their time.
4 months.
They saw the trademark and they're like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'll register that. I'll do that tomorrow. It took 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months to register it, and then whoever did register it flipped it for $175K in about 4 months. Just wild.
Well, and just to be clear, it was listed on GoDaddy. You could have gone into short.com and bought it for $70,000. So it wasn't until then they probably tried to negotiate off the 70,000, and then the person's like, oh, wait a second,
what do I got here?
You know what? Who's buying that? I'm repricing it. So if they had just done the buy it now at 70,000, they would have had it.
Also, like $174,257, kind of I don't know, maybe it doesn't mean anything, but unique. Whereas the other ones like ngbet.com was number 2 this past week at 158,000, bcoin.com 105,999, campuspride.org 47,500, and then emboai.com. I don't know what that means, or I don't know how to sound, emboa.com for 39,888. Like, to me, that looks like just a random combination of 4 letters with AI at the end of it, then .com sells for 39,888. Like, is that?
So what's happened with .ai? Just so we're clear. So it used to be like, I don't know, 2 years, a year ago, if you wanted to get a .ai that was registered and then it was being deleted and made available, you'd have to go, and there was one guy in Antigua who was running it, really nice guy, but he was in over his head with everything just coming in. He didn't have systems in place. So, Namecheap through Spaceship, I think they worked with like Identity Digital, and they run the .ai auction platform now. So when a domain name, a .ai domain name is expired and is available, being made available for your registration, you go to Spaceship and you bid on it. And what you're seeing there with a lot of these numbers are end users. That's end user pricing, because a domain investor like me, you want to buy it on an auction and you're going to reprice it at 10x because your sell-through rate is only 1 or 2%. So you have to 10x. You have to be buying it at 10% in terms of a wholesale value. That's not a 10% wholesale value. That is an end user coming in. But the system that Spaceship has built is super efficient and it's super user friendly. Namecheap is built on end users. It's not built on domain investors. And so they've done a fantastic job to extract as much value as they can for themselves and for Antigua and for that whole ecosystem. But if you can get end user pricing on domain names, which I think you're seeing mostly what you're seeing there, that's super efficient. They've done an amazing job.
Well, maybe good segue into, if you're thinking about, I got this could be a good domain someday, but I don't want to go spend all this money. Doma's helping you turn that, pull some liquidity out of those domains you might just previously had parked. They are, numbers. I'm going to share some highlights here. We've got just overall activity, 53 million in volume, total liquidity now pushing 700K. TVL is 26 million, over 113,000 tokenized assets, unique wallets over 41,000, and total transactions 6.6 million. Consistent numbers, but showing growth pretty much across the board, and expect it to get even, continue to grow at this clip, if not faster, with some of the accessibility, some of the new tools. Michael, I saw you just kicked off Relay this past week. Do you mind, for those that aren't familiar with Relay or cross-chain bridges, do you mind giving us the update on what you just launched with Relay?
Sure. Yeah, Relay is a multi-chain, basically a payments network. They utilize technology of what we call cross-chain intents, basically like an intent to transact that's minted as a proof on chain. And that allows you to have a very low cost bridging of funds between chains like Ethereum or Solana, right? So Doma itself is built on Ethereum, but we have important other protocols that are also built on the same structure, and our Solana bridge is rolling out soon. So Relay facilitates liquidity to be transacted across these various venues. Coinbase has a network called Base. They're an Ethereum aligned chain, ton of volume. They have billions of dollars of transactions a day. We launched an integration with Relay to allow some of these domains eventually to be traded on those venues. So, our positioning was always Doma is just a gateway for the DNS, right? We allow these domains and ownership rights to be tokenized on chain to achieve price discovery, but it's important we bring that experience to where the end users are, similar to what Richard explained with Spaceship, right? So we're okay having the volume on other chains, right? It's important that we remain out of compliance and custody frameworks on Doma, but liquidity and transactions can happen anywhere. Anywhere that the user wants, where fees are cheap and low, and they can get access to these assets at affordable prices. So remember, when you said, we're unlocking liquidity for domain owners, the network is two-sided, right? It's not just solving the supply side needs, but the end users, right? A lot of these retail users, first-time buyers, right? We just crossed 50 million in volume on the network. A lot of the transactions are less than $50, right? People are investing at scale with these small checks, right? They're making entry-level checks. They're experiencing what domain investing is for the first time. And we've only had, I think, less than 50 premium assets launched on the app so far, right? There's almost 400 million domains, and that's probably going to double or triple over the next 10 years, especially with this new TLD round in 2026. So it is about democratizing access. It is about building a network. We're excited to connect folks like Richard, his supply side, with a lot of the demand. And by the way, I think Richard might be the best internet real estate sales agent that I've talked to in a while, because you do make a really good case. You might be just as good as a broker, Richard, as you are an investor. So
yeah. I do love acting as a buyer's broker. Seller's brokers, it's harder. I think someone in the comments was saying, how do you put light onto a premium domain? You wait, and you just be a hard ass. The only way to sell a domain name for $2 million is to say no to $1 million.
What has been the traditional source, Richard, for you in your portfolio when you've bought some of these .coms? The holding period is what, 5, 7, 10 years. Like, how are you unlocking liquidity today before some of these new interesting solutions come up that we're talking about with Doma?
Praying that I'm going to sell before I die.
He sits, I was going to say, he sits and grows more gray hair, right, Richard? Yeah. And
that's why I'm excited for Doma. I'm totally excited for Doma. I think, we're going to get eyeballs on. We're going to see that, bring people along for the ride. No pun intended. And, you're unlocking value that is in these domains, right? Rides is clearly a 7-figure domain, possibly an 8-figure domain. It's, and so you're unlocking that value. You're bringing in and building community. It's taking something that's off the shelf and collecting dust and like making it alive.
What's your dream scenario?
I'm gonna give you a corollary.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Fred.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say. We know his dream scenario. It's going to be $1 billion for Rides.com.
Well, I was going to say, is it going to be Uber rebranding to Rides.com?
Not in terms of like for sale as a business, once it becomes a huge business, or amount of trading volume that we can generate for him.
I mean, Elon just bought this Terrafab.ai. I don't think it's Uber. I think he's going to sell rides.com for the cybercab business, and that'll be the next Elon domain purchase. But
We'll issue him a subdomain. If
Right.
I mean, you got
price.
Booking.com, right? I think the value proposition is very simple for some of these autonomous vehicle companies.
Yeah, I mean, these autonomous vehicle companies, like as you say, like the cyber cab companies, like you look at them, I look at them and I'm like, who was their branding? Like the name does not pass the radio test. If I speak their brand to you, and then you pick up your phone and try and type it in, you're like, I don't know how to spell that.
Fat finger. Oops.
Right?
I'm going to malware site.
What did Michael just say? What did Fred just say? He was, he's calling me. He was like, hey, go get a Zoom. Right? And you're like, how do you spell that? Is that with an X? Is that with a Z? Like, what am I doing here? Right? And, and yeah, Rides covers it all. Right? It's like, are you going on the bus? You're taking a scooter, taking a bike, taking a cab, taking a drone, right? Like, yeah, we're sitting here and we're like, oh yeah, we're all thinking about cabs, but I'd happily just have a single person drone land on my driveway and fly me over, right? I'll get in. I might not be the first person to get in, but I'll get in. And that's it. Rides just covers everything. So to me, it's an exciting domain. It's why I bought it. I bought it in 2014.
Wow.
And I saw it in a newsletter and negotiated the price. And I'm like, I'm gonna sit on this until we're all riding around. Like I truly believe, like I bought a Tesla Model Y, prepaid for it, pre-ordered it, waited a year, it arrived. And I'm in Canada. So when you outfit the whole thing, it was like $110,000 for this vehicle. But the lowest value for the same vehicle was like, I don't know, 45,000. Well, it had the same interior. So when I sat down in it, I'm like, yeah, it's got all these tweaks and fantastic. I already prepaid for the self-drive, blah, blah, blah. I know I'm going down a tangent here, but I'm ranting. It feels like I'm sitting in a $45,000 car. And I'm like, no, you know what? I'm thinking about rides.com, and I'm like, forget it. Take it. I returned it. I went through the process of returning. They had at the time a 7-day return in Canada, and the guy was like, "You're the first person in Canada to return a Tesla." I'm like, "This is the reason why. Your interior sucks." Like I do not feel. I'm like, I've taken the last 6 days because it's a 7-day return. I've driven around, and now I'm buying a Range Rover, and so I bought a twin turbo V8 Range Rover because I believe that this will be the last gasoline vehicle that I drive. And in 10 or 20 years from now, the only people not in self-driving cars are going to be people that are paying through the nose for that privilege. So yeah, I think that I think that rides, and you can talk to young people today, they're being priced out of the market in terms of like what it costs them to get insurance, what it costs them to run a vehicle. They're like, I don't need to own a car. Why would I own a car? The only people that are going to be driving cars are like me and Fred, right? We're going to be driving around in a Porsche 911, right? And the kids would be like, I don't even know how to drive a stick shift. Now, plus that guy's probably paying $10,000, $20,000 a year for the license to drive a non-self-driving vehicle. So yeah, rides.com, gosh, right now, 80% of people are driving themselves around. 90% of people are driving themselves around. 20 years from now, it's going to be flipped on its head. Okay. I think this will age well. We'll see. I'll probably be dead. But in 20 years from now, when people are looking at this podcast, they're going to be like, yeah, the guy was right. I haven't driven a car in 5 years. And when I did, I had to pay an extra $500 for the privilege to do so. So yeah, rides.com. It's going to be what we all do. You're taking a ride. You're not going to be driving.
I agree. I home run domain. I mean, literal category leader. I couldn't agree more. I'm not in my head because I'm very much so a believer in this self-driving cars, autonomy, and yeah, all the other brands out there are very limiting today. Why Doma though? Why bring such a premium domain like rides.com to Doma? What's your vision there?
To me, I want to explore the leading edge here, and this is taking a domain name. I've had the domain for 12 years now, right? It's just collecting dust.
Mhm.
Let's take it and put it onto Doma. Let's open it up for tokenization. Let's bring people in and come along for the ride with me, right? I think the domain right now is worth $2 million, right? What do I think it's worth in 10 years? I think it's worth 20. You know, Michael said, what do you think what will happen with this domain? I think we're going to do a creative deal. You know, there's no promises here, but what I think we'll do is we'll do a creative deal with someone who is an all-encompassing ride platform or company, and we'll take equity in it. We'll take part cash, part equity, and let's take this for a ride. You know, let's talk about the backstory of Uber, right? Who's more familiar with that than me? Fred, Michael, do you remember the?
I just know. I
went
know
to
they had.
Travis.
Uber wasn't the first
was a
domain,
classmate
right?
of mine.
Uber
Yeah.
Cab, I think, was the first domain.
That's right. That's right.
Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, I'll start way back. Travis was a classmate of mine at UCLA.
Wow.
Remember back when he was wearing flip-flops, right? And doing file sharing. Yeah, that's us old guys. After that, Uber Cab, right, Michael? Hail a Cab in SF.
And then they dropped. I think somewhere along the road they decided to drop Cab and Uber.com. And I think you could argue. I mean, Richard probably would agree that having a very human readable, identifiable, authentic brand, just one word, it can go the distance for sure. And I think we see a lot of that vision in rides.com, especially with, the economy, all these companies building for the sector. So I couldn't agree more with that thesis.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think they registered ubercab.com because they were being cheap, and it was like, oh, hand register ubercab.com. And then one of their investors was like, are you insane? Right? You're number one, it's limiting. You're limiting to yourself to cab. And if you go on Uber, there's bikes, there's scooters, there's they even promote public transit, which is what they should be doing, right? But there's things that they aren't really doing. They have Uber Carpool, but they aren't actually really doing carpool like say paparide.com is. And what about drones, right? It's just like there's so many more things, but toot our own horn. Rise.com covers it all.
If they had sold that domain for like 10,000 shares back in the day, right? From a 0 to 1 phase or a startup, equity is not worth anything until it's something, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I would argue as a founder, if I can get a reputable brand name, a .com back in the day, have that brand affinity, definitely can grow, right? And imagine if they held that equity through and through, what it'd be worth today. Pretty crazy.
And I ate my own dog food. Like, I was acting as a buyer's agent for a group, and then I got approached on through another broker on a domain name that I own, and sold it for $70,000. And then I discovered that I knew the purchaser, and I was like, I don't want your money. I don't want your money. I want equity in your company. So I sent the cash back and got shares in their startup. It was passes.com. Lucy is I'm betting on Lucy. I don't want the cash. I want the equity. I don't want another Uber to happen to me, right? I'll just put my chips in and let it ride.
Lucy, the AI girl?
Yes.
Passes.com? Oh,
yeah.
Good for you, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure you made good. Your equity value probably far exceeded what your cash value was, huh? At the time.
Exactly. I want to stay along for the ride on that. And so for me, I live by a motto of be helpful, right? I'm older. I'm 55. I'm like, come join the party, right? That's what, like, I've got lots of fun stories, but let's do this together. Like, to me, having tokenization, it's not just selling stuff off to people. It's like you're building a community. You're building a mini little family, and it's all about the story of, hey, what are we going to do with this, right? And when it goes big, it benefits more than just me.
It's like the spaceship story you told, and Kirkendall and Namecheap is an investor in D3 and Doma as well. I think we made that public, but for retail on AI names, nobody knows about the drop story behind AI auction setup, the fact they're working closely with Identity Digital, and going back to what we talked about Relay and some of this Web3 infrastructure, nobody really kind of needs to know about that plumbing. Just know that we're trying to democratize the asset class and allow retail, at least Web3 retail, to come in. And when Web3 comes in to buy a piece of your name or what have you, they need to have these frictionless, easy, quick tools, just like that easy UI that Spaceship has.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly.
I unfortunately was not early to Uber. Didn't go to high school with Travis. I'm not JCal. I might host a morning show or two, but missed being early to Uber. But I would like to be early to Rise.com. I believe it's launching on Doma in about a week, of March 31st. Is that right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
What do people listening? What do they need to do to prepare? I mean, where do they go? What wallet? You mentioned Relay. What do we, if someone wants to participate on March 31st, what is happening on March 31st with Rides.com, and what can those listening in, what can they do to be prepared for that launch?
They just need to go to doma.xyz on our app. There's a countdown timer. You can register, I believe, for email notifications. There's going to be a bonding curve. So the sooner you get in, you can get in at an attractive price. If it graduates, it will graduate to a decentralized liquidity pool, where the free market will, trade over the market, over crypto markets, right? I believe, are we enabling subdomains, Fred?
Yes. We will be basically making a series of reminders and announcements on Doma every day about the details of the launch. The Web 2 side of me will say, for the Web 2 people listening in, go to rides.com to check it out. If you're in the Web 3 or part of our community, you can also view it, like Michael said, on the Doma app at doma.xyz. The countdown timer's there in less than 6 days. There'll be a number of boosts, opportunity to buy subdomains, opportunity to kind of both own and use a piece of Richard's baby here.
I love it. Well, Richard, thanks for sharing with us. I truly, I know this is you stand to benefit as well, not only building this with a community but truly brand ambassadors. I think that's one of not a lot of people, we talk about Web 2 or original domainers may not fully grasp about the crypto natives, but oftentimes when someone owns a stake in something, whether it's a fractionalized domain or PFP or meme coin, they often sometimes will make it part of their personality and become really passionate and help champion the cause. And I think it is certainly an added benefit here. So yes, thanks for sharing with all of us. I'm really excited for rides.com to go live here. And before I forget, I did want to give a shout out to Dominion, the conference kicking off the end of April out in Vegas. And if you've enjoyed hearing from Richard today, you'll get to hear from Richard at Dominion, the Domain-Fi conference in Vegas. Early bird registration is still live at $149. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Fred or Michael. Is that accurate? Still $149?
Yep. $149 till March 8th.
Till March 8th. Or
28th. March 28th.
Excuse me. Go to luma.com/Dominion2026. Use code CWC as your discount code. You get 10% off for tuning in today. And awesome panel of speakers. Named a few other big ones this week. I'm looking forward to meeting Richard in person. And by then, rides.com will probably be one of the success stories, if not the leading success story of Doma and tokenized domains.
Don't insult brag.com or boner.com or software AI, okay?
That's a recurring segment on Doma OnAir is a boner.com mention, but
we have our AMA on Monday, right?
We'll bring Elon by too. We'll see
Perfect.
if he or SpaceX come by and think about branding for his RoboCab, RoboTaxi.
Exactly.
Fleet. Over that.
Exactly.
Sorry, I missed that.
He's going to add a couple of zeros to what he paid for Terrafab.ai.
Yeah.
We'll be there. There was several questions just for the sake of time. We've ran already about 15 minutes long, and I really, Richard, really appreciate your time today. Obviously Fred and Michael's as well, but being our guests, apologies for keeping you too long, but really enjoyed the conversation. Excited to chat more at Dominion. Is there anything we didn't ask you today that you're hoping to share, whether it be about rides.com or your background, your journey, your decision to bring rides.com to Doma. Anything we didn't get into today you're hoping to share?
I think the only thing that we didn't touch on is I am, in terms of my be helpful, I'm heavily involved in a charity called Water School. You can go to waterschool.com. I go to Uganda every few years. I'm on the board. I make sure that the money is well spent. As a board member, I fund and cover all of the admin costs in North America, so that all of the donations get spent in Uganda. And yeah, that's my shout out. I started NamesCon to raise funds for Water School. We ended up shaving a ton of people's heads, and we raised about $500,000 over the 5 years that I ran NamesCon. So yeah, that's my shout out. We have an AMA on that I'll be on Monday, so people don't have to wait until Vegas, but I'll be in Vegas as well. I'm excited to be there.
Awesome, very very cool. And that says a lot about yourself, and salute on you get time to shout out 100 things, probably thousands of other domains, and to give the shout out to a good cause like that. That's it's admirable. Yeah, Richard joining the Discord 2 p.m. UTC time on Monday. That Discord is just discord.gg/Doma. Get in there, join the AMA lively group, as you can probably take from the chat today. But yeah, Michael, any final thoughts, any closing words from you, and then we'll go to Fred, and then we'll get everyone out of here.
Super excited for rides.com. Check out the domain and map straight to the upcoming launch. So
awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. Fred, any final thoughts, any closing words?
Rides.com for the future of both human and agentic rides. Yes.
Autonomous rides, yes.
Can't underestimate the fact that we're not only selling kind of ownership of these names, but also expanded usage. I think that that's where the big outcomes come for not just like Richard on this domain name, but basically for all humanity. Once we kind of extract the most usage out of such a great name like rides.com. So very much looking forward to it.
Likewise.
Awesome.
Likewise. Well, to all 500 of you plus who tuned in today live, we greatly appreciate you. Thanks so much for being here. Join the Discord, hit that AMA. We'll be back in a couple weeks for another Doma on Air. This was Doma on Air episode 2, from Park to Paid, Making Domains Liquid, featuring Richard Lau, obviously Michael and Fred. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you soon. Have a great day, everyone.
Buying domains was slow, Doma changing the game. One bridge, one standard, now the systems move the same. Registrar, stay central, keep the trust and control. DNS and compliance, still they play the key role. Traded on chain, let new markets arise. Domain value unlocked. Welcome to Domain Fi.